For as long as he could remember, Andrew knew what he was. When it came to his disinterest in girls, he understood the cause. When his dad would rant and rave about how the queers were ruining the country, Andrew learned to plug himself up with mental gauze. For years, the young man hung his head in shame as he thought that for his feelings he was alone to blame. It continued that way until Andrew reached high school, where he met some new friends and finally broke loose from his father's ever-looming rule. At school, his small circle began calling him Drew, and in the endearing nickname a new identity he allowed himself to frame. No longer did he feel quite so pathetic, meek, and lame, a pox on his family whose pride he did maim. Drew started to see their abuse as more of a game, the high score in avoiding the scrutiny he'd claim. Drew's older sister was head cheerleader, so nights she'd sneak out to her boyfriend's where his cum he would feed her. The dumb bitch got caught sneaking back in. The sibling's dad went berserk, citing her sin. In the heat of the moment, she lost her frayed nerves and outed her brother as a freak and a perv. Drew's father fell silent, his anger subsided, drowned under the shock, and from then on towards his son, the man's hatred he guided. Drew spent a few weeks locked up in a special Bible camp. The hope was that his professed homosexuality they'd tamp. Within the camp's wooden walls, he met another boy. His name was Ben, and in Drew's broken heart, joy he'd inspire. Before long, a hidden love affair would transpire. The two held each other afar, light after light, and then all throughout the night. Only at dawn would Drew make himself leave back to his own bunk before the counselors could see. When the camp was over and Ben went back home, the two kept in touch, sharing back and forth letters, which could have filled up a tome. However, one day, to Drew's all-consuming depression, the letters stopped coming. Ben had left him, and in his absence, the world grew dim. It wasn't until after that Drew would find out that Ben was no longer alive. In this life, he seemingly just couldn't thrive. Ben had taken some pills, the kind that doing too much of kills. And lost without his first love, Drew only felt ill. Jaded and angry and upset and firm, Drew felt that sharing his affections would surely render him infirm. The pain of the loss was too much to bear, and so for the remainder of high school, Drew mostly resigned himself to stares. He would leer at his peers as they changed after gym, and in his rubbernecking he eventually clapped eyes on him. Drew longed for his classmate Glenn's accepting embrace. What he really wanted was to feel Glenn's warm load leak down his face. At a house party, Drew pined for relations. When the two got alone, Drew began his flirtations. He went down on his knees and undid his lover's pants, a gesture of which was quickly returned with a punch. Drew fell to the carpet. His advance was rejected. As he lay sprawled there, Drew became low and dejected. Glenn spat in Drew's face before he stormed out of the room, yelling out slurs he proclaimed the gay's doom. Drew got to his feet and wiped off the spit, ultimately glad that he didn't get more severely hit. With high school behind him and a chip on his shoulder, Drew got a job, and his arousal grew bolder. He'd flirt with his coworkers in a sexual way. Drew would often persist, even when it was made clear they weren't gay. Within the space of a month, he was in the boss's office, being fired on the spot, and his attempted promiscuity was far too incautious. Now paying the cost, Drew learned his lesson, and he began seeking out ways to escape his sex life's perpetual frost. Drew answered some ads, and soon he'd found who he sought, sexual masters from whom he was taught. Years went by since his erotic awakening, and with each passing day he felt his libido thickening. Drew was insatiable, his hunger unmatched, and after running through all the out and proud pole in town, a new idea began to hatch. He'd heard some rumors concerning certain secret spots about fellatio so skilled they could all be tied into knots. So he made his way down to the park's public bathroom, a place that the locals had started calling the ballroom. Inside, Drew quickly learned the story was true, and didn't leave the bathroom until a little after 2. The park was so dark under the thick, cloudy sky. Drew had absolutely no idea that it was night that he'd die. He sauntered along, having a great day. The group trailing behind him knew Drew was gay. Slowly the distance became ever more closed, until the gang were upon him. To the ground they bulldozed. As Drew curled up in a ball, the bigots commenced their attack. Beating on Drew, the impacts connected hard with smacks. Drew caught a glimpse of one of the men. It was Glenn. Much rougher in appearance than he was back then, Glenn went ahead and spat in Drew's face once again. Repeating the threats he'd made so long ago, Glenn would make good on them yet. His hate-filled eyes were aglow. They picked up Drew's broken body, ready to throw. As he fell into the river and began to descend, the cold water dispassionately signaling the end. His last fleeting thoughts were of his only real friend, Ben. If you like that story, leave a comment on the video for me. Sorry about any music in the background. With that said, I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.